Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another Wildwoods beekeeping chat. I hope everybody is having a good day today. And today we're going to be having August beekeeping chat. We're going to have Q&A later on. We are in August. There's a lot of things that are going on. It is still hot. It is still summer. It's not yet fall. We are coming upon fall. We will be there, in the next couple months. We'll get into a little bit more cooler temperatures that will help our bees a lot in this heat. We'll be talking about heat, robbing. As Douglas said, that's a good topic. We will talk about that, Douglas, here in soon once we get more into all the topics that we have lined up for tonight's discussion. We are going to be talking a little bit about heat. We have been having some real hot days down here in Alabama, and all the other states in the United States, other countries, are having some very big hot days that are affecting our bees. So there are some good tips and tricks to keep your bees cool during these hot days. And yesterday and the day before yesterday, which was Saturday and Sunday, our heat indexes were around 110, 108, 113, and it was really hot. Of course, it was a weekend. We weren't doing much bees, but hey, it's still good to keep an eye on the temperatures because we do need to keep our bees, cool in these hot temperatures. We're talking about that as well. We have been very busy lately. We weren't able to make our live stream last week, which was July 31st. That was my birthday, so I'm sorry that we missed it, but we're back again for today. It's been about 12, 13 days since I've done a video, and I got a video that will be coming out here soon that is about a swarm. So let's go ahead and get into this. That for today, I went out to the BR today and a couple days before, but today was a very odd day. So about an hour and 30 minutes before this live stream was going to start, I noticed on the side of one of our beehives, it was a nuke that really, I was going to say, it was very weak. It didn't even have any bees in it, I don't think. But on the side of that bee box, there was a good pile of bees on the side of that box. So I went over there, started getting some piles of bees, handfuls of bees. It's a good 6 handfuls of bees in there, I would say. Looked around for the queen, couldn't find her. But then I picked the last scoop up, and there I found a queen. So it was a small swarm that landed on the side of one of our beehives. So I found that really interesting. I got that video. I'm going to be editing it tonight, uploading it tomorrow, probably tomorrow evening or later on at night or Wednesday. So stay tuned for that video. That will be a good one. And I can't go too much in detail because I don't want to spoil the video. It really is just like a 2-minute video, but stay tuned after this coming out video. We'll be talking more about this. So what I did was the nuke that this swarm was on, I just put it into another box. So then after that, that's just kind of, I put it in that box and I left it. I kept the queen in her cage. So that will hopefully keep all the bees that are there in that box just to stay. So then tomorrow, I'll release the queen, and I will also, put a frame of hatching out brood to help out that hive. Because it was just maybe 6 handfuls. It was kind of a small swarm. But hey, 3 bees are very good bees. And I don't know if this swarm was from one of my hives. So what I think this may be a swarm from one of my hives. It could very well be. I didn't check all the hives to make sure there's a queen. So tomorrow, I will get more footage. We'll go into more hives. I'll probably go into more hives tomorrow and check for queens, make sure the queens are there. So this 2-minute video I'm talking about may end up being a 20-minute video once I get all the footage. So it may be a couple days before I get that video out. So stay tuned. It will be a very exciting video. I think it will be pretty good. And, August swarms are something that bees do swarm in August. But they usually rather swarm in March, maybe June, maybe July. And, August is just a different time for the bees to swarm. But hey, I'll take it. As long as I can, keep them, keep them thriving and stuff. I have a good feeling because I looked at the queen, and the queen that I saw looked pretty familiar. If you guys remember that small hive that was that I overwintered, and I really think it may be that hive. The queen really looked similar, but hey, I may be wrong. It may be another hive. I got no idea. So I got to go into some hives and kind of see if I can see the queens and make sure that was the hive. So because I do want to really know which hives are the one that swarm. So hey, we'll see how that all plays out later on in the future. But maybe that'll be another free hive. But let's go ahead and get into our topic tonight, and we are going to be doing a Q&A later on. So if you guys have any questions, any topics you would like me to talk about, please go ahead and leave them in the comment section below, so then we can go ahead and save them for later. That'll be good. So first, I think one of the best things to talk about is the heat. Like I said earlier in the intro, that I often talk about heat. And let's first start out, what are some ways for us beekeepers, because this ain't just a hobby topic. A lot of times, hey, commercial beekeepers need to keep their bees cool. So one way of doing that is providing a bird bath, or some way to let your bees get some water. It a lot of times, whenever in the summer, it will rain. It does rain a lot of times, but sometimes it can get really dry that quick whenever we don't have rain for a week or two. So once all your water gets dried up, your bees are going to be desperate looking for water, because they use it for mainly two ways. They will spray it. I'm going to try to keep it basic, simple for you guys, because I don't want to go too deep into it. But they'll spray it on the brood just to keep the brood pretty nice and cool, and they'll also drink it, to keep themselves cool. They'll do that as well. And there are some other ways that they will, use the water, but I'm not going to get into all of them. Those are just the main reasons. And one of the main reasons is to cool the brood, because they'll spray it on the brood, just, small thin coat, keeps that brood around 92. They usually keep the cluster of the hive around 92 degrees. That's where they need to stay at. Another good way to do is using screened bottom boards. Of course, all my bottom boards are mostly screened. I use some solid, especially my nukes. My nukes have ventilations on the sides, so that will help with ventilation, so they can, draw a lot of that heat out and maintain it to around 94, 92, 93 degrees. That's where they really like to keep it at, basically. Really, is where they keep their levels at. Just that's a good level to keep the brood. The brood can't overheat, and it also cannot freeze. So if you in winter and your bees can't support that brood is gonna die. That pupae, it's not gonna hatch or anything. It will die, and the bees after that will, if they grow or if they decrease, they'll clean it up. And that's whenever you'll see them trying to pull out a lot of dead larvae. It's because it got too cold, or maybe it got too hot. So there's a lot of different things, but keeping the hive cool will help your bees out a lot. Screen bottom boards, but keeping some good ventilation in your hive. You can also use top inner covers that will help out with ventilation. Top ventilation. A lot of times, most screen bottom boards will come with a little opening on each side. A lot of times, all sides will have that opening, and that will help keeping your ventilation at a good level, so then these can, keep the hive cool. Water is important. So what are some ways you can set out water for your bees? And a lot of times you'll find bees drinking water in some of the weirdest places. So a lot of times, whenever you set out water and there's already water out there, like maybe there's a puddle of water, a lot of times the bees always, for some reason, prefer the dirty water in the puddles whenever they have it, rather than your bird bath water. For some weird reason, I really don't know the main reason for it, but it really just does happen, kind of. I don't know really how that all works, but bees sometimes prefer that. But then once it dries up and the bees have really no other option, they will really rather go to your bird bath. So if you set it out, or maybe even 5-gallon bucket, because a lot of times when I'm feeding chickens or something and I'll put a little water in a 5-gallon bucket somewhere, and a lot of times whenever rainwater gets in a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, 4-gallon bucket, and then it dries off everything else, I will see bees in that 5-gallon bucket drinking water. I found it pretty cool. And once those bees find that location, then they will sit there and say, hey, this is where we are going to have our water source. And they'll go back to the ever have and get more foragers to go out there. So in hot days, rather than trying to forage for nectar or your sugar water, they will tell the foragers to go out and get water rather than get the sugar water. So a lot of times I set out some sugar water one day, took them a day or two to find it, because the day, of course, I set it out on one of the hottest days. And rather than they want that, they really want water instead. So, that's kind of how that plays out. Sometimes bees prefer the water rather than the sugar water because it is so hot they really need the water. And it's a good couple ways to, keep your house cool. There are a whole bunch of other ways that I'm probably not thinking of, but those are the main I use. Keep them have water. They need water. And have a little ventilation in the hive, and that really works out very good. So the next topic we'll talk about, I know Douglas brought this up in the comments, and it's about robbing and safely feeding each colony without it being robbed. So this is a big topic because a lot of times beekeepers want to make sure their hives won't be robbed. And there's one important thing to make sure your hives don't get robbed. And a few ways I do it is one way of feeding during a dearth I would highly suggest you don't do is the entrance feeders. Entrance feeders are the feeders that you stick in your bottom board entrance, and the bees will go into the little slot and up and drink the sugar water. The reason why this is a really bad idea is because if most of the times we will accidentally spill a little bit, or a little bit will drip to the bottom of the feeder, and then that scent, if there's no other nectar for the bees to go get, that scent will tell a lot of your other hives, hey, there is some sugar water over here. Let's go ahead and come over here and get the sugar water. But then while they are there, most of the times, what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, there's another hive over here. Let's go ahead and rob them out because we need some, because we're this desperate for food. We just need to rob another hive. So bees get desperate enough that they have to rob other hives. So that happens during dearth. And one way of doing that and keeping this from being a problem is not using entrance feeders during a dearth. If there is a lot of nectar, it may not be a terrible idea to use them. Of course, I don't really use them all the time. The only time I'll use them is usually during spring. And whenever there's a very, very good nectar flow. If there's not a good nectar flow, then I stay clear of them. But another way of doing it is using robbing screens while you are feeding from the top. And robbing screens are screens that you can put on the front of your hive. And the form I usually see them come in, they come in different forms. But a lot of times, whenever you put this on your hive, there's a little, about this big of an entrance on the top of the robbing screen. The inside bees will find their way to come up and out. And then that scent that the bees go through there, they'll tell the other bees, hey, we don't have the entrance down here. Let's go up through this entrance and use this as our entrance. But then once those scout robber bees come in and try to rob the hive out, they are used to the entrance that they're used to. If you use standard entrances, they'll go to the entrance and they're going to try to get into the hive, but they can't get into it because the robbing screen's in place. They don't know how to get into the hive. Only the bees, the worker bees inside that hive know how to get in and out. So that is a good way to keep your house from being robbed. I don't use them, but I've heard a good deal about them. And I do know how they work. They are a pretty simple thing to work out and figure out, but they are very useful in a case if you need to make sure your hives don't get robbed. especially during the dirt. That's definitely when it's more into that point where, you have more robbing going on. And a lot of times you can put them on each half during dirt. So if you are really worried about your robbing, you can go ahead and get a whole bunch of robber screens and put them on each half. But a lot of times, commercial beekeepers who have 300, 400, 500 colonies, they really don't want to be buying 500 robbing screens. So, you can see where that kind of can get to the point where it can, it's hard to remove them and take off. So, but if you're a hobbyist beekeeper or a small sideliner, then put one on each hive can reduce the chances of your hives to be being robbed. And whenever you're top feeding, a lot of times I don't see any problems with open feeding. Sorry, not open feeding, with top feeding. So top feeding, you put a 5-gallon bucket on top or a 1-gallon bucket, and or you can use a 8-ounce jar. I've used both, but bees consume that 8-ounce jar pretty quickly. So I use 1-gallon buckets, and a lot of times what I will see on the hives whenever I do that is that a lot of times the bees that want nectar will go to the 1-gallon bucket and sit on the edge and go in there and drink. So they're focused on that rather than robbing the hive. So as long as you have those on, it's really those 1-gallon buckets are not really a big, I've never had anything happen about that with robbing. And it's just sometimes you can, sometimes it can't track robbing, but for me it really never does. Hey Mark, good to see you. I use a shim and a Ziploc bag feeder. Works great. It's cheap and you can control the trickle of feed. Yeah, that sounds like another good way to feed. There's a lot of different ways to feed and keep the bees, from robbing each other. There's a lot of different ways. I see a question here. I want to go ahead and answer it before we continue more into some of the topics. Because I got some more topics to talk about, and one of them is a really big topic and a big question I've been getting lately from other beekeepers. Let's see. Do you still have a good drone population? And right now we got pretty decent. So like the swarm that I was trying to remove, of course I had to drop out on the swarm. It's actually a really big cutout. I started cutting it out and I just couldn't do it. It was really too hot for me to get in that suit for 6 hours while it's 100 degrees. It's really difficult task. Of course, sometimes you have to do it, but I just decided we'd wait more until fall to do that. So that's what we're gonna, we're gonna wait till fall to remove it. But I did see a whole bunch of drones in that hive. And that was about a couple weeks ago. So it tells me that we still do have a good drone population around here, even if it's not from my hives, it's from other feral hives. So hey, as long as I want some drones from other feral hives, if I know that some of my there's drones in other feral hives, that tells me hey, that's good, because they're not kicking drones out, because they only kick the drones out about late fall, right whenever winter approaches. And it may seem like we're not really close to winter, but it'll be here sooner or later. Winter will be here before we know it. So, you gotta, kind of wait, slightly prepare for that. Another thing I'm doing right now, really what I'm focusing on is this goldenrod that's coming in. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to prepare the bees for the honey flow and trying to get them pretty much ready, get some good honey. And since we're not really in a good flow right now, it is very tricky to get the bees to draw out foundation. So what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to feed the bees some 1-to-1 sugar water from the top and get them to draw it out. That's what I'm really trying to do. But it may be a little bit more of a difficult task to do. But, we're still working on that. We're still, keep on doing it. And try to prepare them ready. Because, goldenrod is in the fall is one of our biggest flows. It really depends on the weather. It will stay until sometimes it can stay until October. It just all depends on how the weather cooperates. It really just does depend. But that's what we're trying to do, get ready for the goldenrod flow, because we see some goldenrod on the side of the road. It ain't blooming, but they are growing, the stems. So they will bloom later on, probably mid-September. They could bloom even maybe late August. I have no idea, but we're gonna wait and see how all that plays out. So this is another big topic, and this is a fun one to talk about, and something that a lot of beekeepers have been asking me lately for my opinion on it. And like, I think I've been asked this question a couple times on my live stream, so I just want to go ahead and go more deeper into it, because whenever I'm answering questions, I don't really go too deep into the topic. Tonight we'll try to do that. And one of those things is handling aggressive hives, how to handle them. And if you have a very defensive hive and you don't want to keep that genetic, how do you replace that queen and make that have a nicer hive? So first, let's talk about genetics, because this is where all these mean traits come from. It's genetics. So most of my apiary contains Italian hives. I grow off mostly Italian hives. I have a couple of Russian hives. They're a little bit more spicy. Italian bees they usually start upping their game earlier in the season. So they'll make brood even in February, sometimes even January. All winter long, they'll continue brooding. If you have Caucasian or Carniolans, they don't brood during the winter, from what I know. They just, once you get more into it, those Carnies or Caucasians, I think it's usually Carnies, they're nice. But before winter comes, they will back up their population a lot. So a lot of times this can stress out newer beginner beekeepers, or new beekeepers, or beekeepers who are new to Carniolan bees. This is just how they usually act whenever they go into winter. It's nothing really to fear. It's just that they are shrinking their population, so they don't have to eat as much. So a lot of times, if you have a lower population of carnies, they don't consume as much honey. Stores, of course, they are smaller, and they don't have a big cluster, but they have enough to keep them warm and not have to drain their food supply that fast. So, kind of works out like that. And genetics and Russian. Let's talk about Russians. Of course, Russians are a little bit more of a spicier bee, and Russians, sometimes newer beekeepers probably don't want to go down the Russian route, because Russians are a little bit more spicier for newer beekeepers. For me, I like Russians. A lot of beekeepers don't like them. I like Italians, don't get me wrong, but Russians are a really good honey producer. They're better honey producers than Italians. Italians are more nicer than Russians. So there's a lot of pros and cons to these genetics that you can give opinions about. You guys in the comments, you can let us know what y'all think about all these genetics. But I like Russians just because they draw foundation pretty good, pretty decent. If they are in a good flow, they can get some good honey in. Because I had this Russian hive extracted pretty much 100 pounds off them, one deep. About 3 weeks later, they filled that thing right back up with about 105 pounds of honey. Of course, I didn't extract it, and the bees barely ate any of it. I think they probably ate about 20 pounds. So I could have, extracted about 60 pounds of that and made about 60 more pounds. But, what I did was I just let the bees rub that out, since once I got to the point later on, I just let them rub it out, because I really didn't want to bother with it, because it was a 1 year old honey, probably about 7 months old, somewhere around there. And I just didn't really want to fool around with it at that time. So, it's kind of that's kind of why I like Russians a little bit better. But hey, there's a lot of different opinions, I must say that. Thanks, Brian Lee. We were on vacation last weekend. That's why we weren't able to make the live chat last week, which was my birthday on, when was it, July 31st. Of course, that was whenever my live stream was, and we went to Tennessee for a concert. pretty fun, and we're able to get this hat. So I thought I'd wear it because I really like it, because I like guitar and stuff like that. And we went to a guitar store. A lot of people may know it, but up there in Tennessee. But we had some good time up there, and enjoyed it. But Russians and all these different ones they're good. They have different pros and cons, and a lot of times, let's talk about how to know if you need to replace your queen. And there's a lot of different things about this. So, a lot of times beekeepers who see a semi-aggressive hive want to immediately kill them. And this is one tip I'd give to everybody. Wait before you kill that queen. Just because of the temperament. If you are in a DERF, your bees are 100% likely going to be more feisty. So before you kill that queen, wait until the DERF is about over. Of course, you can't wait too late. You want to get into a perfect spot to do it. So what I would suggest is, if you have aggressive hive about this time of the year, about September, maybe even October, I would highly suggest not to kill the queen. Main reason is because at that time, those bees, all the other hives in your area, are most likely starting to be kicking out the drones. So then your queen may not be able to, mate with other drones, and that can be a huge problem. I made that mistake about killing a queen. Killing a queen cell, or I think we killed a queen by accident. Some time, I just can't remember all the years of beekeeping, but I remember it was during that time. No drones that didn't make it. So that's just one tip that is a good one to think about before you kill your queen. Make sure you got good drones that your queen can mate with, and make sure that it's not just because they are in a DERF. So if you're in a DERF, let's just say you're right approaching the DERF, you're 2 weeks into the DERF, your bees start getting mean. That means that it's the DERF. A lot of times bees get a little bit more rowdy during the DERF. Why? Because they don't have all that nectar out there for them to go and forage. So they're not really happy. So wait until the next year, or right whenever that DERF ends and you have drones in your area, and make sure that that queen, she may not be bad after all. It may just be they don't have enough honey. Because I had a hive that the reason why they are a Russian hive, I really can think so, because in spring, when they got bigger and bigger and bigger, they got a little bit more rowdy. And that's another thing. So when you guys have new packages, maybe you got a Italian nuke or an Italian package, and you put them in your nuke that you want to put them in, or your 5-frame box. And once they get to about a double deep or a single deep, they start getting a bit more rowdy. It's not because of the temperament. It's because they are getting bigger. They have more brood to protect. They got more areas to protect. So overall, they really need to up their game on their temperament and their defenses. So if your bees just stayed so nice as they did, it's a big opportunity that other hives at that same level or even higher will go in there and rob them out. So it ain't necessarily a bad thing for the bees to be rowdy. Of course, we don't want to have Africanized bees. That's something that I hear a lot of times is whenever you have a very spicy hive, a lot of people, newer beekeepers say, or people who don't even keep bees, that's an Africanized hive. But it probably most likely ain't. It's probably just Russian or a very spicy Italian. Because a lot of times people say if you have an Italian, they should not be spicy at all. This is one thing we got to consider when we are talking about spiciness. If you're letting them open mate with other queens or other drones, letting your virgin queens open mate with other drones, you have no idea what drones your bees are mating with. So there is a big possibility that your virgin queen is mating only Russian drones. And if that's the case, there may be about a 40% of Italian in there and more of a 60-70% of Russian. So you can see that. Or it could be the other way around. You can have a Russian virgin queen that hatched out. She makes with only Italian. There could be more Italian genetics in that bee that she's going to lay rather than the other genetics. So it's really something to think about. Yeah. But, a lot of times that that's something that happens all the time. But it's good to think about. And, try to make sure that you don't just kill the queen because of her temperament. Make sure you wait a little bit and make sure, because I see a lot of beekeepers with higher temperament. But, a long time for me, I am going to say this up front, that I can deal with the little bit meaner temperament. And, sometimes can happen. I will take any questions. If you guys have any questions that you guys would like me to answer, I will answer them before we have about 30 more minutes until the live stream, then we'll go ahead and cut it off. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. And we also do appreciate any super stickers, super thanks, super chats. We appreciate all of them that are sent in here by, subscribers or people who watch the YouTube channel. We appreciate all those. And I see a lot of people in here. I see Bruce. Good to see you in here. Never Alabama Beekeeper. J.W. Irwin. Good to see you as well. We have Ed, also from Dauphin area. We have Tim, Gun Bees from Mobile, Alabama. I think that's where we're at. We have, let me look. We got Lee. We got a whole bunch of people. Brian, Lee in here. Good to see everybody in here. I saw Lisa up there earlier from Ozark, Alabama. A lot of local beekeepers around here, which is good as well. Have good local beekeepers. So, since we're talking about local beekeepers, that really made me think about this topic. So I guess it'd be a pretty good topic to talk about. So whenever you're a beginner beekeeper and you get into beekeeping and you want to, do something with it, a good way to learn is to, go to other beekeepers' places and let them show you how to inspect your bees, how to do things with your bees, tell you the difference between queens, drones, and workers. It's good before you get into beekeeping to feel what it's like to, feel what the bees feel like. Because, whenever you're getting into bees, you got to know what you're going to be dealing with. So beekeeping doesn't come really at an easy price. It is expensive. That's one big thing about it. It is really expensive nowadays. It used to not be, but since everything, our prices have gone up over the years, it has become more expensive. Wood, bee boxes, abavar, keeping your bees alive, sugar, sugar water, all this different stuff. It's expensive. So once you get into beekeeping, you really do want to know the consequences of beekeeping. So number one of those is time consumption. Of course, you can spare your time evenly with your bees, but bees do need some attention. You can't leave them for, a couple of years without attending. They do need to be attentive. Of course, they don't need to be inspected every day. I don't want to get the word out there wrong. They just need to be inspected maybe once a month at the least, twice a month. Sometimes if you're really busy, it can go 2 months. I just don't want to leave them alone for a couple of years. Of course, you very well can. But, if you want to do things with your bees, it is good to get into your house regularly and make sure that your bees are still alive. That's what I like to do, at least. I like to go in there and just make sure that they're okay, make sure they got enough room, make sure that they have enough space to expand, because the main reason why I want to make sure they have enough room to expand is if they're not able to expand, they're going to swarm on me. And sometimes if you're not prepared for that, then, you'll lose a swarm. Of course, it ain't, I've mentioned this a whole bunch of times, so I'll mention it again, that it doesn't matter if you lose a swarm. If you lose a swarm, hey, it happens all the time. But it is time consuming. Not just getting to your house. And you can, if you're a beekeeper who's really extra busy, you can go, 5 months without getting into your bees. It really does. It's not really that. Another big thing about, about that time consumption is buying the equipment. You have to spend time looking for equipment. You have to spend time looking for your bees. You have to spend time doing other things with your bees, not just getting into them. This does not include going out to the bees. It's just including getting online, trying to buy all the boxes, trying to get all the things ready, trying to get your bees ready, trying to go pick up your bees. If you have to go get nukes, you may have to take a day off from your job and go off and spend a whole day, maybe even a couple of days, getting your bees ready, get them back, get them ready, and getting your packages, because a lot of people don't ship packages. A lot of people don't ship nukes. A lot of times you have to go pick them up. Of course, nukes, nobody ships nukes. You got to go pick up nukes locally. Sometimes, you may have to go a couple hours away to go pick up your nukes. So it is time consuming away from just inspecting your house. It's time consuming doing that. Since one thing I do like to think about, even though we could let our bees go off for, a couple of years, feral bees are able to do that. I know that. You just got to weigh everything. That technically, let's say we're farming bees. And since we're farming bees, they are not in their natural habitat. We stuck them in a box that they're probably not used to. So, if they're in a different location, they may fry better or something. You never know. Different locations and stuff like that trailer, they probably weren't touched for a year or two. But they had other things to do. They weren't in a box. They weren't in a box with frames and stuff. They were able to just go in there and start making comb everywhere. And that's just one good thing to think about, since we're farm bees and they're in a unnatural habitat. Of course it is still natural as we can get it so far, but to be honest, it ain't as natural as a tree. So it is good just to make sure that to inspect your bees once a month. That's what I would say. Good once a month. Spend a weekend every month and just go out there and do that. It's something good to think about, and good to think about. And of course, I don't want to get the word out there in a wrong way that you have to inspect your bees every week, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't inspect my bees every week. There's a lot of times where we are too busy. There's weekends where we're too busy, but I like to take a day, a not too hot day, a day I'm not busy, and just go out there once a month maybe and try to inspect the hive. And it is time consuming. It's good to know the consequences. It's good to know what you're putting into your bees before you go into it. Because what I see a lot of times, and you get into bees and then you say, this is too time consuming. I can't, do this. I can't spend the time to go pick up the bees. I can't spend enough time to buy the equipment. I can't spend the time to extract the honey if I want to do that. Because I'm going to say one thing, extracting honey takes a good deal of time. It takes a full day to extract honey. I've done it before. We've done it before. It takes a lot of time, especially if you're going solo on it. It takes even more time because you have to, get all your scrapers, scrape them, get your setup ready, get your honey house ready. You got to go out to the bees, probably on a hot day. Get a couple supers that are very heavy. And another thing about it, there is some heavy lifting involved. A lot of times you're picking up about 80, even 100 pounds worth of bees and honey and resources. If you have double deeps, it can put a good struggle on your back. But if you take all the things that you have to do, and you can tell yourself, hey, I have enough time to do it. Heavy lifting doesn't really matter to me. Hey, go for it. It really is a good experience. And the reason why we got into bees is to get out into nature, do something, something a little bit different. We saw it somewhere, but probably online somewhere, and we thought that'd be a good idea. And look where we're at now. It's good that we decided that we'd get into bees, because if I didn't, then I probably wouldn't be on this live stream right now. I would say that for sure. If I get into bees, I wouldn't be here. keeping bees, but I'm glad I did, and it's just never a good thing to think about whenever you're getting into bees. Thought I'd bring that up while I was talking about. I forgot what topic I was talking about, but it's just never a good topic to think about. Is there any more questions in the live track? We got 20 more minutes to go. Getting kind of darker. And if you do have any more questions, keep them rolling. I like to answer questions. I find it pretty good to answer any questions. And this goes back to the genetics. I just finally remembered a question that a guy asked me a while back, and I forgot who it was. I almost think it's Russell. I just forgot who it was. I'll have to go back and look. But they asked, why do you like the Russian genetic? Why do you like it very much? And I already kind of explained it, but I guess I'll explain it a little bit better. That the reason why I like the Russian genetic is that's like the second or third genetic that we went off on. First we did Italians and then Russians, and I find that some differences between the both. Pros and cons. Russians make a whole bunch more honey. They're a good honey producer. They handle their honey different. Italians, they handle their honey different. They're a little bit more slower, of course. Russians are a little bit more faster, I find. And Russians, they are more spicy. And a lot of times beekeepers don't want to deal with spiciness. Italians, they don't want to. Italians, they are nice. They are easy to work with, and they're not that spicy, I must say, just because that's genetic, the form that they come in. So yeah, that's kind of how all that plays out. Thought I'd talk about that. Something important to talk about. Genetics. Genetics is a big thing. Get the perfect genetic for you, and sometimes it can be really hard to pick the right genetic. You just gotta try something. It really depends on where you live. If you live a little bit more north, a lot of times Carniolans, Caucasians, probably Russians, they may be better for you. Down south, Russians, Carniolans, Caucasians, and Italians will work. The reason why I'm not saying Italians, in up north, is because Italians usually brood up earlier. Just because that's how they work. Just kind of how that all goes down. Hey Bruce, good to see you in here. Let's see. Grayson, what are you going to do to make sure your bees are strong going into winter? So, Bruce is down here as well. Whenever we go into winter, and Bruce knows this, a lot of southern beekeepers know this as well, that our winter is a little bit more different than the north. Our winters go up and down, and all this different stuff. I usually call it a roller coaster winter. We did a video about that a while back about roller coaster winter, and it turned out pretty good. I did that video for my brother a while back, about 7 months ago, maybe even 6 months ago, and I talked about that roller coaster winter. And what we mean by roller coaster winter is that temperatures go up and down. So one day you'll have a 60-degree day, 65. That is 65. It's pretty warm, I must say. It's decent outside. But then the next day you could go down to 50. Next day you could go up to 69, 70 degrees. Next day you can go back down. It's really, really, just wavy. And sometimes that can trick your bees sometimes. And what I mean by this is sometimes when it gets real warm, they're eating food. And then once it gets that cold, they may not have enough food on board to, go for it. Sometimes another thing that will happen a lot of times, this is a big reason. And whenever we're going into winter, or once we're in the middle of winter, if our winter goes, very warm. I know it's getting dark over here, by the way. I hope you guys can still see me. But anyway, whenever we get into winter and we get to a warm day, 70 degrees, what happens? 65 degrees, 67 degrees. What happens? The bees will break cluster. And why is this a bad thing? And they'll start going up into the sleepers, checking on everything. And then, with a snip of a finger, during that night, if it gets down to 40 degrees, 35, 20 degrees, that fast, a lot of those bees up top won't be able to make it in time down to the cluster. And those bees up on top can die. And, even though it's just a couple bees, it is something to think about. That's one thing about, these roller coaster winters. So, it's really nothing we can really do about it, I must say. It's something that happens. It's just good to know, though. And when I go into winter, I like to make sure my mite loads are down because I don't want too many mites in the hives. I just don't really want too many mites in there. And what I'll do is, what I've been doing is just treating in fall. I was going to treat in spring before the flow, but we had a weird year this year. I decided, hey, I'm just going to not worry about the treatments because, I'm not really worried in the spring. What I'm really worried is about during fall, about this time, about August, September, and October. I want to go ahead and treat them in that time. After that, I want to go ahead and treat them probably about early September or late August. So you got to get some Apivar in, and we're going to put some Apivar in there, and then do that. That's how it's all going to go. And then I also like to feed during winter. So feeding techniques, you can feed from the top. I like to feed sugar bricks, candy boards, basically. They work good as well. Another thing that happened, that was pretty interesting, I put a candy board on. It's 4 pounds of sugar and water. And you put it on top. And it's basically a sugar brick. It's just on a board. You put it on top of the hive. And it was cold. One day I put it on there. The next day, it was warm. It was warm. But they ate the entire thing within 24 hours. I found that pretty interesting. And those bees like those candy bars. And they'll cluster on top and eat it. It's pretty interesting. And they work out a lot. And I really like them. So how do you winter your colonies? Aren't you near Troy? I am near Troy. So like I said, temperatures down here really go up and down. And like I said, I usually go into this form, treat before winter, kill all the mites, and feed pretty good. So then the bees won't, starve. I don't want the bees to starve. Then I'll just pretty much pray that the bees will get through winter. Sometimes I'll lose hives. Sometimes you'll lose hives. But it happens all the time. Every year, when you get into winter, you will get, you will get to a point where, they can die in the winter. So, that definitely can, it definitely happens all the time. I had a hive die last year. But out of 6 hives, I got about 5, so, it was pretty good, decent out there. I forgot, out of 6, I'd say that's about an 85, 70%. I think that's 85%, overwintering rate, which is pretty good, if you ask me. In my opinion, it really does, work out good. Is there any more final questions? We got 10 more minutes. I may talk about a couple more things before we end off. And I know it is getting dark. I don't know. I can't see myself on the screen because it's so dark. For me right now, I can still see a little bit, but it is pretty dark. I do apologize if you guys can't see me. But if there is any more final questions, I will go ahead and answer them. I think that'd be good. If there are any more final questions. August is here. We got, like I said, got to figure out robbing. Robbing's still a thing. And until your flow starts. Like goldenrod coming around. A lot of times it'll come early September. A lot of times it will come late August. It really all depends. Sometimes it comes middle August. Sometimes it comes late August. Sometimes it'll come late September. It's just really, 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 different. It really all depends on how the weather cooperates. Because I am going to say one thing: Mother Nature is going to do something totally different. So, one thing I've always known. This is one thing that happens all the time. This happened a whole bunch of times this year. I get myself set on a plan that I want to do, my expansion plan, everything that I want to do. Then all of a sudden, it doesn't really work out. And why is that? Because Mother Nature has a different mind. Mother Nature, you gotta read Mother Nature. It's really hard to do that. I must say, it really is. And to make sure that everything goes in the correct order. So, hey, not all plans are going to go correct. So one day, you may be going up the middle route, and all of a sudden, you got to go the sideways operation. It's all different. It really depends on what the temperature is, what's going on, what your mindset and your goals are, and how the weather affects it. A lot of times it can be just rain can affect it. A lot of times it can be cold weather came in earlier than you expected. A lot of times it can be that the dearth came sooner. Hey, it really depends. It really, changes. It's not always a guarantee that this is going to happen. So, whenever I got all these plans, I'm always telling myself that, hey, it may not happen because Mother Nature may change the way I need it to happen. You know what I mean? You guys probably can kind of relate to it. That it can change. And it's a good thing to think about. So, yeah. And, as a hobbyist beekeeper, hobbyist. Last week we talked about hobbyist, eyeliner, and commercial. If you guys didn't see that live stream, I suggest to go check it out and see what you guys think about it. But, I'm a hobbyist beekeeper. I have, about 11 halves. I have queens coming in. Good queens, pretty much, I think. Hope they're not drone layers. I'm trying to keep on top of it. I had a couple queens lay multiple eggs. So I think this is a all right topic to talk about. You guys can give me your opinions on this. That whenever you have queens come back in, they're laying, they lay a good pattern. Then you see that there's multiple eggs in a cell. And I saw this and I was kind of alarmed by it. And I didn't know. It really looked like 3 eggs, maybe 4 eggs in the cell. And there was a queen in the hive. Yes, it was a good laying queen. And, drone laying queens don't lay multiple eggs in a cell. And then I, left it as it was because I didn't know what it was. And I researched it later that night. And you guys can give me your thoughts on it. But a lot of times, newer queens will accidentally lay multiple eggs in a cell because they are very thrilled and excited to do their job. They accidentally lay multiple eggs in a cell, but they will correct themselves over time. And this hive that I found that did this about a week and a half, about somewhere around there, it seemed like the bees cleaned out the cells, make sure that there's just one cell per egg, one egg per cell. And it looked like the new eggs that were coming out were 1 egg per cell. So if you have any thoughts on this, I think it would help me out a lot because, I looked it up. It really didn't explain much about it, but that's kind of how it goes. Okay, we got a couple questions in here. Okay, Tim and Hannah asked Grayson, have you thought about 2024 goals? So I'm always thinking about 2024 and things like that. I think we're all thinking about the future. Of course, the past is the past. We've lost halves in the past, but we got to forget about the past. We got to move on, and we got to think about the future. And for me, the future is just to expand and sell more honey. So, and try. I really do want to expand. This year, I really was wanting to get to 20 halves. I was really thinking about 15. Right now, I'm about 12 or 11, somewhere around there. Depending, I really can't say for sure where I'm at. around there. Once I go into winter, I think I'm gonna have about 10 good halves, because some of the halves may just be too weak, because a lot of them are small nukes that have queens. But I just don't know. Haven't yet all the way figured out, but I think it's really gonna be expanding, making some honey, and selling honey. I really want to make a good spring harvest next year. That's another big goal as well. Hey Brian, good to see you in here. Grayson, how was your honey harvest? Are you selling honey? Well, the spring harvest was very not good. It was terrible. And the reason why it was not so good, that we had a very little cold front come in around, what time was it? About March, and killed everything that was blooming. And it really messed up the honey flow for us down here in Louisiana, because I know Lee had some big effectiveness about it, with their prevent and stuff like that. Our stuff really died as well. And everybody else in Alabama, a lot of people down south had some big issues on the honey flow this spring. So what I'm hoping for the future is that we have a very good goldenrod flow, and I can get about a super or two of honey, stock me back up on some honey for me and to sell, and we should be good to go. I think that's what we're going to be aiming on. But yeah, flows, it was weird. Very weird last year. I don't know what affected the flow. It just, it's really just that cold snap that came in. And like I said, you never can, not always. A lot of times you can, but not all the times you can't read Mother Nature. It's something how that happens. And, oh, there we go. We got some lights. Oh, there we go. Yes, you guys can see me a little bit better now. Yeah, that looks perfect. So when we do these live streams, I'll have to remember to turn on these lights so you guys can see me. I guess that looks good with the black in the background. Yeah, I like doing live streams out here. I've been doing them for the past couple weeks, and I'm hoping I can do them a little bit more. But then once we get into the other time, we're an hour back. The time and all the lights. Oh, did my camera freeze? I think my camera froze or something. Oh, that's not good. Can you guys still hear me? Looks like I think my camera froze. Give me a second. Can you guys hear me? Because I think, from what I can see, my camera froze. I think my mic should. Yeah, that's right. My mic should. Oh yeah. Let me look at the camera. Yeah, you know what? I think my battery just died. That ain't good. Here. General camera. Let's do this. This camera ain't probably ain't better, but the camera, my main camera, which is my Canon, just quit on me. Let me take this off. Oh, sorry about that. Let's see. This camera does not look very good. I don't like this camera at all. That's why I switched to that camera, because it looks so much better. But this is what we got to work with for the time being before I end the live stream. If you guys have any more questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. That'd be great. Before we end, since I got lights now. Because once I didn't have lights, it gets darker and darker and darker before you can't see. Good. I know the camera doesn't look good, but it should work for the time being. Because I'm probably about to end. I'll probably take about 2 more questions. If there's any more final questions, I'll take 2 more now. I want to go ahead and end this thing. I think that'd be good. But that's what's really been going on here. We've been busy, very busy lately. Not with just the bees, but today was different. If you guys weren't here in the beginning, I found a little swarm on the side of my nuke. A nuke that was very weak, and it just didn't really go so well. There's a little swarm, and I have a hunch which have it came from. It may come from that that Russian hive that I overwintered last year, but it was very small and I was worried about. The queen just looked very identical. But hey, it may not be. I have no idea. I gotta go check that hive and all the other hives and check. So tomorrow we'll get some more footage, make the video out. Probably be kind of a long video. See how the other ones do. I'll show you guys a little bit of that. That'd be very interesting. But it's just for people who didn't know. That's kind of what happened. South Mapper. That's Vincent, my brother. So how are you aiming for before 2023? Well, I'm going to say about 11. And hey, you know what? It'd be good if I could pull off a couple more splits. But I'm really not really not very looking forward. I don't really want to do any more splits just because it may not be a good idea. So I'm going to go with what my gut tells me I should do. So that's probably just kind of stick where I'm at. And if I'm at 11, I'm thinking I'm going to be coming out of winter with about 8 or 9 or 10. That's just good to think about. I don't want to think that I'm going to come out with all my 11 or 12 hives that I have, maybe even more if I decide to split. Yeah. How many honey hives do you have in 10 years? We've kept these about 7 years. Once we come in 10 years, that'd be a decade. I think that's a decade. Decade bee. So since we've been keeping bees 7 years, I'm going to go ahead and round that up to 10, somewhere around there. And I think this is our 7th season. Next year will probably be our 8th, maybe even our 9th. Who knows? I really haven't really kept up. So over the years, I've went up and down. One year I had 2. Next year I had 4. Next year I had 9. Next year I had back to 4. And then next year I had about 5. And then the next year, which is probably the 7th year about now, I'll have 11. So you can kind of see where that kind of all works out. And that's kind of how everything played out. But I know it's getting dark, and probably need to go ahead and need to wrap this thing up. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I appreciate everybody who's jumping in. And we have 90 people. I'd appreciate everybody to go ahead and smash the thumbs up button. That would help me out a lot. I really appreciate everybody here. I appreciate any super chats, super stickers. If you send any through the channel that does support us, anything that is donated to us, usually will go back into honeybees to help out the operation or something else. Maybe it'll go to guitar stuff. Who knows? But I do appreciate any super stickers, super chats. Appreciate everybody who subscribes to the channel and who follows along for the journey. So go ahead and off here. We'll catch you guys on the next beekeeping video, everybody. Take care, everybody. We'll see you later.